You're listening to the Family Discipleship Podcast, a podcast of training the church.
This is Adam Griffin, and I'm here with my incredible co-host, first Mrs. Cassie Bryant. Cassie, your favorite book when you were in elementary school was?
Oh, you guys, I loved R.L. Stein's
Goosebumps?
Scary Goosebumps. Yes.
Oh, so
I know.
creepy.
I know.
Were you like a big Halloween girl? Were you like, it's Halloween every day?
I liked scary movies.
Okay. Like Wednesday
Like a morbid
Addams.
sense of curiosity. Love Wednesday Addams.
Okay. I did not know this about you.
Yeah.
Did you have like a goth phase? Did
No.
you do the,
Okay.
Did you have a black cat?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm allergic to cats.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I just really enjoyed, I guess, dark
Scary
things. Scary
stories.
things. I like suspense. I do like feeling a little bit nervous and afraid.
Oh, really?
I think it's fun.
Really? Do you still go see like horror films?
No, I can't do horror because it's like demonic. Some of the stuff out there is real scary, but I can do suspense.
Okay.
Oh, like what was the one? With the
I know
guy
what
from
you
The
did last
Office.
summer?
No, The Quiet Place.
Oh.
Like I'm here for that. Stranger Things. That kind of stuff is fun.
Okay.
Not you. You don't like that kind of stuff?
Some of it. I don't like anything like you're saying. If it's like demonic,
No,
if
I
it
can't do
seems
that because that's real.
rooted in reality. I watched a scary movie once that seemed too real, and that was the last one for me.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? There's no reason for me to call this entertainment.
Yeah.
So I'm basically against it, but there's some things I like.
But
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Yeah,
It was pretty
Goosebumps.
harmless.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Look, you turned out all right.
Yeah.
Also with us tonight, my wife, Chelsea Griffin. Chelsea, what was your favorite book when you were growing up?
Do you know it? This should be a test of
Oh,
our marital.
Wow.
I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't Black Beauty.
That's right.
It was no books about horses that my wife was like, oh, yeah. Like,
she-
you were very confused by the horse movement
I was-
among young women,
I was very
right?
Well, it's a
puzzled.
homeschool thing, really.
No, in all the schools.
Whole sections of libraries
Lots
dedicated to
of
elementary
little
girls liking
girls
horses.
really like horses, and I did not relate as a child, so that was very confusing. I did love a book called The Dollhouse Murders.
Also dark.
I was going to say, and that has had a huge impact on your life. Chelsea is still into like true crime,
Oh, big
Oh,
time.
yeah.
cults.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love shows about cult activity.
Her Netflix algorithm is full of like, hey, do you want to join a cult, start a cult, or learn about a cult?
Yeah.
Like it's,
Our listeners are checking to make sure they're listening to the right
Right.
podcast right now.
And I continue trying to train the algorithm to be like, yeah, I need one more of these,
it's golf and then true crime mystery, basically.
Yeah. I like to know about somebody crazy doing something
Wow.
crazy.
Well,
What? I was going to say
Go
what I
ahead.
think your favorite book was.
Oh, what did you think it was?
My Side of the Mountain.
Oh my goodness, that's
It's
exactly
so
it.
good. Birdie just read that for her summer reading.
Is that right?
It's so good.
I love like they have these. If you've never read it, they have these little illustrations of how this little boy kind of survives on his own on the mountain, and they illustrate like the traps he makes and how he makes his house out of
He
a tree
befriends
trunk.
like a bird, like a falcon or
And he has a falcon. I mean, this is little boy Adam's dream. I mean, I could still get fired up about it.
Have you read the sequel? The Far Side of the Mountain?
I have, yes. Yeah, it's been a long time. In fact, when I revisited My Side of the Mountain more recently, I was like, oh, I don't see what I liked about this, honestly. But I
really liked
loved it
it
when I was a kid. And so much of my life as a child was spent like out on a hill and next to a creek by myself, like fishing.
He lived in a tree.
Birding.
Tree?
Yeah, it was my dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, lived in a tree. I remember he burned out the
Like
middle of a tree.
upstate New York or something.
I was showing my kids tonight this invention that somebody sent me on the internet tonight where this guy created a way to attach steps to the sides of trees so you can make a, what do they call it? A spiral staircase out of a tree trunk up into a tree. And I'm like, oh, I still love that. Like little boy Adam would have dreamed of that. But yeah, My Side of the Mountain. I loved it. All right. Well, speaking of our favorite books, let's talk about this stage, elementary age stage. What's going on developmentally for these 7 to 11-year-olds? What's new to them? What's growing in them? Cassie, help us understand the mind of a 7 to 11-year-old boy or girl. What's happening in there?
Well, they're reading more and more independently
Often,
and
yeah.
rapid. I mean, my girls started outpacing me in reading, which is hard because I like to keep up with what they're reading. But yeah, so they're reading a lot. They're growing in their capacity to understand. I think they're really curious about how things work at this age. And so they kind of go from like why and what to how, which plays into like relationship building and understanding their place in their social settings at school, their place at church, their place in the family. And their identity, their concept of self is really,
Big time.
really growing in this stage of life. And they are kind of measuring that or seeking to understand it by how like other people relate to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That self-esteem kind of movement, that identity that comes with maybe responsibility or maybe more self-awareness of what other people think. Bullying takes a big uptick at this stage, or mockery, making fun of each other, poking, seeing somebody that stands out and they're different and then making them feel bad for it. It's also, we talked about reading, but it's also that stage where a lot of people find out their kids learning differences, right? Yeah. This is where a lot of those early diagnosis,
neurodiversity stuff,
exactly, where that starts to manifest. And so where your kid is different, divergent, or struggling, that's typically the stage is where you're starting to find those things out about your kid. How do you help them in light of the way God made them? Now, what are their challenges? What are their strengths? It's also the stage where those kids start to develop their ability to wrap their head around abstract concepts. Everything's not just concrete. Now they can start to wrap their heads around some bigger ideas. Peer relationships also take a big leap forward, and extracurricular activities, and maybe even preferences within academia where it's like, no, I feel good at this, or I like that. Art, not math, or math, not art. And those things start to really develop in kids. You can almost see like where they're going to be as they grow up and what are the things they're going to focus on. Chelsea, when you think about this age, 7 to 11-year-olds, what are the kind of spiritual opportunities that come to mind for you? The opportunity to disciple this age, or the things we can maximize during this stage where you go, man, what a great opportunity. What comes to mind for you?
I think about helping a kid kind of take ownership of their prayer life, beginning to have their own relationship with God. This is when our kids start really expressing to us, I'm nervous about my softball game and feeling really terrible because they didn't do as good on a spelling test as someone else did. And a lot of like Cass said, those kind of identity things that are starting to form. Am I good at this? What am I good at? What am I bad at? Did I fit in here, or was I excluded there? And so they're facing like what feels like maybe for the first time the full gamut of human emotion, right? Of the rejection and acceptance and pride and disappointment, excitedness, stuff like that. And I think this is a time where we can help shape our kids' perspective of, what it means to be human and made in the image of God, and how to relate to God when we are feeling whatever we're feeling.
Yeah. Absolutely. Help me take that now. Say, what did that mean for our discipleship and our family in that stage?
Well, I was going to say about this age, this is the big age where like when kids are really little, parents can have a good time. I mean, most of the time, parents can have a good time at a sporting event for their kids, right? It's like the clump of children that's all chasing the soccer ball, and maybe one goes in the goal. It's pretty like much a coincidence that it went in the goal, and everyone's like lighthearted, easygoing. This new age range, this is when a lot of, no offense to the dads of the world, but like a lot of dads start to, I think, have like an unreasonable estimation of their child's eliteness at a sport, taking it very seriously. Now we're getting some private batting lessons, and we're like doing a lot here. And I think there's a big opportunity for discipleship there to rather than to always be telling our kids like, you're so good, and they, no, I'm not good. And you build them back up, say, no, you're awesome. We have an opportunity here to say, like the reason winning sounds great is because we were made to worship the God of victory. Yeah. There's a God that has victory over all things, and you are called to worship him. When you win, you feel something like that, and you were made to know him. And we can really help shape our kids' experiences. Say like, I enjoyed watching you get to just use your body and to be a teammate. And I loved watching you do your thing. And there's a worldly version of that that's like, hey, be awesome. And no matter what happens and no matter what anybody says, you are awesome. When the better truth for them is that you were made by an awesome God and you were made to worship him.
Yeah, one of the things you just mentioned, I love about the way you parent. I've seen you do this so many times, where instead of just saying, you are so good at that, you say, I love watching you enjoy that. Or instead of building their esteem or their idea of their identity around their achievement or their relative success to their peers, you've made it about their ability to build their character in what they're doing, or to enjoy what they're doing no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud of the way you handled that loss. To me, is better than saying like, man, you're actually better than those kids. Those kids cheated, or those refs were bad, or hey, those kids are better than you. You just need to practice more. We don't make it about, a comparative, or a covetousness, which we see is something the Lord warned us against. But you're so good at pointing out, like, I love the way you parent, Chelsea. I love watching you parent, and you do so well at it.
Hey, thanks,
I
Adam.
love the way you
That's
enjoy
sweet.
parenting our kids. Cassie, what does this stage look like for you guys when you think about discipling your girls?
I think it's like a really important time to start talking about like that relationship piece and what God says about who they are.
Yeah.
So we've spent a lot of time building up a picture in their mind of who God is. And I think it kind of starts to pivot. Now, what does God say about who you are? You know, and so that when they're tempted to believe something that's not true, or whether it's because a friend told them something or because they just think it about themselves, it's like, but yeah, what does God say? He says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. He says that you're made in his image and you're precious to him. Or if they're anxious about something, you know, what does God say about that? And so I think pointing them to his word, pointing them constantly to what God says about who they are or how they should relate to others is just huge. It's hugely important at this stage. And it lets them know, like, oh, there's an authority. There's someone, and there's good news in that authority. It's not like just a lecture from my mom about that, but it actually is comforting to be reminded that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, or that I don't need to be anxious because he clothes the lilies of the field and he cares about the birds. And a good father, if you ask for bread, doesn't give you a stone, you know? And so it's like so fun to just get to point them to, you know, who God is and what that word says about how he relates to children or his children. And so I know it's kind of gets sticky at this stage, and we're really careful at church when we talk about God's children. We follow it up with the definition of those who love and trust Jesus, because we don't want to offer them some false sense
That's good.
of relationship with God at this stage.
Yeah, that's real good.
You know, it's really hard. Our kids, my kids specifically, very much have this like their identity to God still very much our family. It's like, well, we're believers. We are Christians. Like, we go to church. And I'm like, and I do my best to be like, what do you believe? You know, and to try and make it individual. And you're kind of always walking this line of them finding their identity and how they relate with God, aligning with the family, and not. And this is where you kind of help them walk that bridge, I think, in more individuality, kind of what Chelsea was saying, like teaching them to pray on their own and helping. I have a daughter who's really struggles with some anxiety, and it really just surfaced this last year. She's had a couple traumatic events happen and just gets really anxious at night. She'll wake up with night terrors. And we've just gotten to say, hey, like God's word, he's your refuge, and God's word is a sword. And so we're going to show you how to use it. So we've picked a couple Psalms. She has it on her shelf at her bed. And if she wakes up in the night, like if we hear her, we'll come in, we'll find her, it's open and her light's on, and she's reading the 23rd Psalm. And she's just like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, you know, and she just is reading it. Even if I walk through the valley, she knows there's power in God's word, you know, and we've equipped her with how to pray. And so we're helping her see, like, yeah, I can come in and give you that comfort, but God's word is way more powerful than me coming in and trying to comfort you. And so it's really been sweet to kind of help them walk that bridge. And hopefully all of our kids will walk that eventually, but man, this is a really sweet time to kind of foster some of that independence in them and not wait till they're in college having to do that on their own.
That's good.
You know?
Absolutely. I think some of what you're talking about there too, when you're talking about identity, it's also that stage, you know, elementary already, you're talking about sexual identity and age appropriate version of saying, like, when in the younger elementary kids, like, how are boys and girls different? Mm-hmm. And then as they're getting older, you know, their older elementary age, they're getting 10, 11 years old. There's kids in their school or kids in their community or kids in their church who are showing interest in one another. Yeah. There's like a junior version of American dating that a lot of parents are almost pushing their kids towards. It's also a lot of...
Tell me more about that. What's that like?
There's a lot...
Like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Where the parents really delight in, like, oh, he's got a crush on her, and we're getting them time together, and they think it's so cute. And again, I'm going, man, this is just, you're playing with fire in a way that's in the end not going to be healthy. You're talking about whether or not your kids are going to have devices and what they're going to do with the fact that their friends do. Exposure to the internet is happening at this age, video games, the kind of things that gives other people access to your kids. There, maybe it's TV or whatever, screens, devices. But this is the age, the average exposure to pornography in this generation, I believe, is now 9 years old, which is dead center in the middle of elementary school. Yep. So whether that's print pornography or whether it's written or down or pictures or whether it's the internet or it's TV or And it's sad reality that elementary school is the time that we're having age appropriate versions of talks about a lot of adult level issues. Even smoking, even drinking, there's some of that starts for the kids in this age. And so how are we helping our kids handle things like peer pressure, requests for things that are not okay? How do we handle our own bodies? And on top of all that, we're trying to form their faith and share our faith with them. And so it's, we've said a million times, we don't want to just have a sex talk with our kids. We want to have 1,000. We don't want to just have a faith talk with our kids. We want to have 1,000. And so elementary age is like, man, this is the real world
it's
stuff.
A lot. You kind of have me stressed out right now. Just a little.
Should we read this 23rd Psalm?
Yeah.
Turn the
I'm
lamp
just like,
on?
man,
Okay.
we're doing this right now. We have elementary age kids. And I just am like, we're in it.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, it's like a lot. We're doing a lot. They're doing
It's
a lot.
real. Like let me say it like this. I'm really kind of tired of the small talk parenting. Like, how's your kid doing? Where are you buying them shoes? What sport are they in? And while that's all great, let's get together at the kids' birthday parties and talk about it. This stage of life, guys, when you got elementary age kids, it's time for some real talk. Like, what are y'all doing to help your kid be prepared for this?
Yeah.
We can talk about resources in a minute. What are you guys reading together? What are you reading about this generation? What's been helpful to you? How are you going to talk to your kid about this? How are you handling requests for things that your family doesn't do, or school pressure, or their peers when their peers are the problem, or when they're the problem for their peers? You know, like, how are you handling these things? And being able to find maybe a community or at least another person to process some of this stuff. This is heavy.
Which is so hard at this stage because you are so busy with your kids.
You're
Like, when
busy.
do you even actually get time with your community group?
Totally. And then the truth is, well, Cassie, you and the Griffins here, we have a built-in opportunity to say we're parenting towards Christ together. I mean, we sit in this room and we talk about it all the time. A lot of people who listen to this podcast are not in the midst of a community of people who are parenting the same way they are. And we've heard that over and over again from people that are saying, like, I don't know anybody else in our school who's trying to raise their kids the way I'm trying to raise my kids. And that is so difficult. And in this stage, I feel like that rubber hitting the road it can cause parenting anxiety or parenting guilt, which we've done whole episodes on that. And you guys can definitely go listen to those. We're not going to have time to stop down to say what you would do about that. It is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about lately. We have a book with Crossway that I think will come out in 2025 that is kind of addresses that idea of, like, how should Christian parents feel about their parenting in the midst of what's so heavy. But what we're not going to do is just say, let's give up. Like, the whole reason we do this podcast is not because we think it's kind of cute and frou-frou to have, like, hey, let's make crafts for our kids and let's tell stories to our kids. It's because we think this is critical.
Yeah.
We think this is incredibly important. And I think it's really hard for parents to feel like they can do this on their own. Yeah. And so we're trying to have real conversations in our family and real conversations for your family about these things.
Yeah.
Chelsea, a lot of times at this stage, this is when family discipleship, if you've been kind of consistent in it, it starts to drop off. It starts to be less consistent. Why is that at this stage when we're talking about this is critical, there's so much important stuff going on? Why is it at the same time, the time when families start to go, yeah, we're really not talking as much about the Bible and reading it together as much?
Because our kids are so talented. We have to help them go pro
Kids got
at
talent.
whatever hobby they have acquired in their 1 decade of life. Truly, though, I mean, we hear from parents all the time and they're like, well, but my kid has, I'm not kidding. Like, you know, I've heard of like 7-year-old soccer teams that practice 2 or 3 times a week. I personally think that's a lot. Everybody's free to do what they will, but ultimately, like, you make a schedule and it's very similar. The way you spend your time is similar to the way you spend your money. Like, you can say something is important to you and then you got to parse it out and say, well, where's the time going? Where's the money going? And so it is hard to make a decision that says, man, we would feel more included, or we would feel if we were doing this activity or another, or we would feel like we were left out, or we're really missing out on an opportunity if we don't do this one thing. And that can feel like a very real and legitimate fear to parents, even at a young age. When one of my first jobs out of college, I worked with a woman who was a lot older than me. And one day, she had to call in sick for work, but then she came back to work and she was sobbing all day long because her 12-year-old had torn his ACL. And she was like, she really felt like his future was over because she felt like 7th grade was the year for him to really get noticed and then to get on this team so that he would one day be on this other team. And like she really felt like his whole future was hinging on that ACL. And then she told me that her social life actually had began to revolve around his athletic experiences. And she's like, so I just lost all my friends.
Wow.
Because she's like, there's no reason for us to travel with the team. He can't play, but that's what we were going to do all summer.
And that's the only parental kind of peer group she had.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's that age that they start reaching out to the church. Like, hey, my kid doesn't want to come to church. I don't know how to get in the youth group.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's because if you're not coming to church from ages 7 to 11, and if you haven't taught your kid this is what we're going to prioritize, then it's going to be really hard when they're preteen, teen, like
For sure.
in the door.
For sure. Yeah. Unless that youth group has the right amount of pizza, fog machines, and
peers,
air hockey.
I hear all the time, it's a conversation of critical mass. Does your student ministry, does your kids ministry have enough kids from my kid's school? And if it's not enough kids from my kid's school, then I don't know if that's the right church for us. And again, I feel like that's putting kids' peers in a king position that I don't believe they should sit in. I get that. And I admire that. I love it when our kids have friends at church that also go to the same school. I am for that. I am absolutely not against that. But you do not have to find a church where your kids' best friends go in order to make it a church. And if you do build around that, the danger is that a kid goes, the reason we go to church is because this is where my buddies are. And philosophically, I believe the reason a church provides kids ministry and student ministry is not to provide peer relationships, but to provide discipleship.
Yeah.
It's relationships with other adults inside the church that are there not to monitor your kids, to disciple them. And if you want to join a church in doing that, awesome. I'm all for it. And if you want kids to have friends while they do that, awesome. All for it. But the kind of driven by my friends, my kid is king and his preferences are king. That's really dangerous. And at this stage, you still have some of that, a little bit more collateral than maybe a little bit later stages. Chelsea, you brought up activities. Some of the other things I thought about when I was thinking through why does family discipleship start to drop off is a lack of resources. There are a million resources for preschool families. Yeah. When you get to this middle grade, we talked about this when we talked about the Bible study I did with Trillia and with Moody, where we were writing Bible studies for kids in this age group. And part of the reason is there's not a lot out there. There's not a ton of people writing for the stage. And part of that is because the market demand is small because parents aren't discipling their kids in this stage.
Go off, Adam.
I do have a little soapbox here. Can I give you a little soapbox?
Do it.
Okay. A couple things here, guys. So much of what we do in the preschool stage to disciple our kids is at the lowest cognitive level. We're talking about in Bloom's taxonomy, and we're talking about in cognitive domains, you're talking about defining and describing things.
Yeah.
So what are we doing to disciple our kids? We're asking them if they can remember this story. Do you know what the definition of grace is? We talked about our last episode, kind of like defining some words, describing some things.
Yeah.
And that is the level that we have graduated from and just kept at for the rest of their lives. And we feel like, oh, that's pretty good. My kid knows the Bible stories. My kid can define some things, but we would never do that in another subject. Just last night, my nephew was over here. My nephew just graduated from Texas A&M. Chelsea, whoop.
Gig 'em.
Okay. Just graduated Texas A&M. He's an engineer, aerospace engineer. He's walking me through what he does on a daily basis as he's designing military aircraft. And the kind of calculus that kid has to use every day, it's astounding. I couldn't even come close to it. You could give me all the calculators in the world. I can't come up with what he's doing and how he calculated it. It's amazing. But I'll tell you, that came from not stopping with third grade math and going, that's pretty much all you'll need to know. Yeah. He graduated to another level. And what I think we have stopped doing is when you get to this elementary age, we've kind of been satisfied with a very low level of understanding of what we believe. And that means as long as they can define some things and describe some things, we're okay. And then we've even been so ill prepared for it, either by our parents, our generation, or our churches, that we wouldn't know how to take it to another level. But if you look at, again, I'm going to reference Bloom's taxonomy. I think I'm going to write a little bit of this on our blog sometime soon. I've got a lot of energy for it right now and fire in my gut. I just haven't taken the time to put it on paper. But if you look at Bloom's taxonomy, the lowest level of understanding something is your ability to define it and describe it. But to take it one step up is to demonstrate it. to say, hey, kids, if the lowest levels you're asking the kids questions like, hey, how many times does it say this in the Bible? Or where is this in the Bible? And then in the describe level, maybe you're saying like, hey, explain this to me, or I want to explain this to you. In the demonstrate level, you're getting all the way to, hey, if someone said this to you, how would you respond? And you're seeing if your kids can actually like understand what you've asked them to, and apply their faith to a situation. So, hey, you're at football practice and a kid says this to you. How are you going to respond? You're at soccer, kid says this. How are you going to respond? Hey, someone in your class is Hindu or Buddhist, or someone in your class is Mormon. How would you respond to this? Or someone is curious about their faith. How would you respond? And you start taking it up just one level. And then you go to, in Bloom's taxonomy, there'd be another level of that called distinguish, where you go, can they tell the difference between what's true and what's not true? And if all we've done for our kids is fill them full of, hey, this is true, then we aren't preparing them for the day when they're going to face something that sounds true, though we would say is not true.
Yeah.
Even biblically, like there's this idea that there's going to be some things that seem right to you, but in the end, they are not right. Mm-hmm. And so how do we prepare our kids for that? When I first became, Cassie, when you and I first started working together at the Village Church, and I was the student minister there, the first series we did was on Galatians for our teenagers. And I wrote up these questions, and I would prep the leaders every week. And I'd say, hey, I'm putting flawed questions in your discussion guides every week to see if the kids can tell the difference. And week after week, these kids could not tell the difference. We'd ask them a question like, how good could you be and still end up in hell? And how bad could you be and still end up in heaven? And these kids would just straight up answer it because they're so used to like, well, you guys, if you're asking me, surely that's what we believe. And they just start answering. And we go, no, guys, this is not what we believe. Or we'd give them metaphors for the gospel and say, how is this? You're stuck in quicksand and somebody throws your rope and you pull yourself out. How is that like the gospel and how is that not like the gospel? And these kids are like 15, 16. They should be able to think for themselves. They're taking high-level math, high-level science, and they could not distinguish the truth from not the truth. And even above that, there's levels of designing things, being able to say, hey, can you on your own, can you come up with your own original thoughts around this? And driving our kids towards that, maybe that's not the elementary stage yet. And certainly like the defend stage, the apologetic stage of our faith, probably not the elementary stage yet. But if I'm going to get them to that higher stage, then in the elementary stage, I have to take them beyond do you know the Bible stories? And can you define for me what grace or mercy is? I want to take them to a higher level. So I have a more of a soapbox on that, but I've already talked too much. Cassie, is anything that I'm saying resonating with you in the church world that you lead?
Oh, it's so good. And we just had our parent preview for students yesterday and was just so encouraged with, where it's headed in terms of teaching them to think for themselves, to think critically about scripture, to really be prayerful as they are studying scripture and ask the Spirit to reveal to them. And we'll be doing your Proverbs study in the fall with our preteens. 5th through 7th grade will be doing Proverbs on Wednesday nights. And we're really excited about Proverbs for our kids because it's so like living in, what is the definition? We've used it, living in God's world, God's way, for God's purposes, I think is the definition for wisdom that we've talked about. But anyway, so really excited about where we're headed for our students. I think we've experienced some of the same, it's such a critical age for really teaching your kids some ecclesiology, like what you believe about the church, why the church is important, why we belong to our church, why mom and dad, like why we go here, and making it a family thing. And I think that prioritizing the church at this age is really important in laying the foundation for them being part of discipleship in the student ministry, if your church has that type of programming. Sure. And so that's kind of but if we see that drop off, especially with, I think about the parable of the sower seeds, and it's like the seeds that fall and are choked out by the weeds. And I just feel like this is the stage where the weeds can take hold.
That's a good example.
And I just don't want the weeds of soccer or volleyball or theater to take hold and choke out what we've so diligently planted.
That's good.
From birth to age 7.
Yeah.
So it's like, can we not like start pulling some of those weeds? And it hurts. It's uncomfortable. They might have thorns. I don't know. But man, a relationship with the church and being discipled by their parents, it's the most important thing. If I only use 3rd grade math, for the record. So I did not. I really don't do much past multiplication and division in my daily life.
But your faith life has matured past a first grade level, right?
Yes, praise God. Yes. But my point is but I'm not an aerospace engineer, and that's okay, And so I just am like, it's okay that to prioritize the most important thing. It's more important that if my, daughter doesn't become an aerospace engineer, that's okay. Because like if I prioritize science camp and science extracurriculars outside of what they're learning instead of the church, that's where I feel like I'm fanning it the wrong flame.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think this is that stage, elementary stage, where you start to see your kid kind of maximizing themselves in areas and learning what they're really good at and what they really enjoy. And then faith sometimes takes a backseat for families because the volume gets turned up on other things. And all I'm advocating for is to keep the Lord in the place he should be and the other things in the places they should be. Our family loves football. Our family loves our kids doing activities.
Yeah.
Our family is big on our kids being responsible at school. No one is trying to throw out science or math or athletics or music in order to disciple our kids. I think you can do both. But for some reason at this stage, I think because parents are exhausted, they get tired, and the thing that goes is discipling their kids. And I think the other thing is parents run out of gas sometimes by this stage, not in the sense like they're exhausted, but they stop wanting to as much. It feels like their resistance is up, their busyness is up. And so we make a lot of excuses to say, well, it's so busy right now, or my kid doesn't really like it, or I have kids of so many different ages right now, or we're just, we're never in the same place at the same time. And the truth is like, well, if you really wanted to do it, you would find a way to do it.
I wonder how much of this comes down to like how tired we are as parents in this stage.
Yeah.
And just like we've been worn down, maybe some of our ideals have been worn down, our zeal for the Lord has been worn down. And so we've, felt despair or discouraged and have lost sight of the goal, have lost sight of like the treasure, And so I don't know. I just can't help but wonder like, man, maybe just by the time we hit 40, it's like really hard and we're really tired, and we have to fight for it. And
you do have to fight. I do believe it's hard.
We have to fight for it.
But I do believe also that we can do it.
Yeah. And
I always go back to what John Tyson said to us on that episode where he said, I'm not asking you to do something you can't do.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you to do everything you can and believe that you can do more than you think. That runs through my mind all the time. Yeah.
I think too, I wonder for us, and a lot of our listeners are in the Dallas area, there's this false sense of choice that I think we have to make. I was just talking to a dad about this Sunday at church, where I'm like, I bet if all of the Christians said, we're done playing sports on Sundays, that would make an impact in our city. Yeah, and I know not every listener is in a city that would make an impact. But I think we have this false choice of like, no, actually, I think if everyone said, no, we're not doing that, they would probably change some things because we still have enough critical mass to make a difference. And I just think we don't do it. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
No, you're right about that. Our culture expects Christians to be very lackluster in their faith. That's what our culture wants from us. Like to say, no, I really actually want to keep the Sabbath holy. They'd be like, what on earth is happening here? But you're right. In a lot of cities and neighborhoods, Christians could kind of bind together, but there is just so much even disagreement within the church of what's really important and how that should play out. And some of that you just go, okay, like we can trust the Spirit with one another, but at the same time, like we do have, a lot of us don't live in an isolated place, in an unreached people group. We do have the body to rely on and say, even though I feel sort of alone, will you do this with me? To another family around us.
And we're the only, there are so many other religions that take this so seriously around this stage of life, in terms of milestones, or maybe I was thinking about, I don't know if it was John Mark Comer or maybe John Tyson, but they were talking about a discipleship group, and this might have been more middle school age or whatever, of kids getting dropped off at like 7 a.m., be discipled by, I think it was Mormonism.
Yeah, Mormons do a seminary
like Monday
every
through
morning.
Friday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like what would our 7 to 11-year-olds do if there was intentional discipleship for an hour every morning, Monday through Friday?
This is what I think about. I think about that Dietrich Bonhoeffer,
so
chapter
cool.
1, Cost of Discipleship, all the time, where, if you're a part of a religion that is legalistic, of course you're going to be legalistic about the day you worship, the time you worship, the things you study, because you know that like your standing with God depends on this. Ironically, because of grace for the Christian,
freedom,
we turned it into cheap grace that says like, well, since I can both play soccer and love God, it's okay for soccer to replace God in this aspect of our life.
we don't
Or
need to lie.
it's not just in our kids' lives. It's with the way adults treat materialism. It's how we pursue what we have and what we keep. And
Yep.
it's how we pursue health and extending our lives. We say like, well, I can worship God and make my body a temple. And we go, well, actually, instead of making it a temple, we've made it a God.
Mm-hmm.
And you've pursued it as if that can now supplant God's control over your life. I love, we had Zach Eswine on a couple seasons ago.
So
and one
good.
of the things he says is, I don't have to apologize for not being all powerful. I don't have to apologize for not being all knowing. I don't have to apologize for not being everywhere all at once. But I do have to apologize for trying to be. And that is the way we treat these
Yeah.
things. Like I will replace God. And for our kids, when we replace God with our kids and their whims and their desires or their peer groups or their studies, or replace discipleship with something that's a cheaper version of it, a lesser excuse, and then depend on cheap grace, we're actually not following Jesus. We're following a nominal Christian idea.
Yeah.
And while I always tell people in Dallas, the number one religion in Dallas is nominal Christian. And to
Yeah.
the Christian, there is no such thing. You'll meet people who say they are Christian who do not actually follow Jesus. And that's the most popular religion in town. I know that's not true of all the cities we're talking to, but I bet it's a lot of them,
Yeah.
that the most common religion is people who say, I follow Jesus, and have no evidence of that.
Well, and the thing about this life stage is the 7 to 11 is this is where they'll start sniffing out some hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to start saying, well, you say this, but then you do this. And I think that's it plays an interesting role in our discipleship of our kids because they start calling you on the carpet a little bit. Like,
That's true.
Hey, Mom, you say this, but then when we're doing this, you don't do that. You know?
Well, this is the age when kids start to notice that because of what we believe, we're different.
Yeah.
And I want to develop that,
Yeah.
right? I want to strengthen that feeling. I want kids to feel, and I'm preparing our kids all the time. Like, yeah, that person's not honoring the Lord with what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
And our family's different because we follow Jesus. It's different. Chelsea, one of the things that you're so gifted at is with kids in this age, with our kids, you help them develop independence, responsibility. They're hitting a stage where you don't have to do all their dishes, all their laundry. You don't have to mow the lawn for them. Talk to us about that, where parents can think not just about discipling their kids in saying like, now we're going to really up our game in Bible stories, but like, what are we also discipling our kids in maturity and in responsibility?
I think this is a huge deal because we want to cultivate confidence in our children that is a legitimate confidence in who they are and what they can do. And the overarching idea to me there with our kids is you can do something hard.
Yeah.
It is so tempting to sit on the couch when you could be doing something that you're supposed to be doing. Today, Oscar and I played tennis and it was 110 degrees outside. And I just kept telling him, like, we're building something up in ourselves. It's hard to stay out here, but it's good for us. We need to get out and move, and we don't have a membership to play somewhere indoors. So here we are. And it was really, really hot. And when I think about like the responsibilities around the house, a lot of moms, I think, feel like it's hard to give those responsibilities to their children because it's hard to relinquish the control of having those tasks done perfectly and to their standard or efficiently. It is not efficient to watch a 4-year-old do laundry. I've seen it with my own eyes. And you kind of have to
How does the folding go?
You have to look away. You have to look away.
And then look for their socks 3 days later when they can't find their socks because
Yeah.
they put them in the wrong place.
But they can do it.
Yeah.
And I have so enjoyed that with our boys to always be telling them, like, here's something else. I know you can do this. Or to say, this is what mom expects of you. I'm expecting you to do this thing, to carry this out, to show some sort of endurance, strength, perseverance, or even just diligence, right? Just the diligence to actually do a thing. Because ultimately we're trying to raise Christ followers.
Right.
And Christ is going to ask us to do hard things.
Yeah.
And if you have such a litany of experience of saying over and over and over, I do something hard. It's hard, and then I get up and I go do it. My mom expected it from me. My dad expected it. My teachers expected it. And I don't know if this is true, but Oscar told me that his friends at their school, a 60 is considered a passing grade now. And that a lot of schools in our area, if it's a major project and you don't turn it in at all, you still get a 60 because they wouldn't want anyone to be discouraged, because if they're so far behind that they're going to fail anyways and they won't turn anything else in. So you just give them these things, right? And I understand, I'm sure it is very hard to navigate schools right now. I'm not judging the schools. I'm just thinking about my own children and what kind of expectations do I want to put on them, not to oppress them or just squash them. I'm trying to call them up to say, like, you were made to do something hard.
Yeah.
Jesus says, if you want to follow me, you're going to pick up your cross. He's talking about a death. He's talking about suffering. And so I think it's really important with kids in this age that we start to give them legit responsibilities around the house. Also to say you're part of our family. That's an identity thing and a belonging thing. And, you know, and we expect our kids to serve at church. And on the one hand, we don't want them to grow up and be so bitter about being pastors' kids or whatever, but so far it seems to be a joy. But again, we're saying, like, this is the body, this is our church. And we say a lot, you know, Griffin serve. We say that Griffin serve to lead, lead to serve. Like that's what Griffins do. We say leaders eat last. We got that from another family in our church. We're just putting these expectations, say this is what it feels like to be different. This is what it feels like to follow Christ. This is what it feels like to do hard things. And I want my kids, when they leave our home, to feel so confident that even when it's going to cost them social acceptance, it's going to make them feel excluded or alone. I want them to be so used to that and to know that that's a false God. Acceptance is a false God. Popularity is a false God. And worshiping them has never brought fruit. And so when they're faced with it, they go like, I don't even fall for that anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that also translates over even to the way we would call our sons to pray and to read their Bibles. It's no longer has to be just, well, you read your Bible when mom and dad are with you, or you pray when mom and dad are with you, or you pray when we're at church, or you pray when you're at, you know, kids ministry. It's when our kids tell us they're struggling, we ask, have you prayed about that? We're creating the expectation that, like, you could have your own prayer life. Or when we're going to do family discipleship right now this summer, Chelsea's calling up our kids to say, read these next couple chapters, and then we'll talk about this tomorrow night. Because we are fostering an expectation that the Bible can be read on your own. You could study it. You could take notes. You could come with thoughts. And I want that muscle not to be weak when they're starting to get to be teenagers. I want that to be strong. I want that heart to be pumping. Cassie, what were you going to say about that?
I talked to a mom today whose daughter started their first day of college, and she said she's already had to turn a boy down that asked on a date, and she already had to tell a roommate that she doesn't drink, and she already had to tell, you know, I mean, she kind of was on day, you know, I think she moved there Friday, and so over the course of the weekend or whatever, and so I think we were just talking about, like, that resilience that you're teaching them, like, hey, because once they're out from under your roof, they're going to be faced with, you know, all of these challenges and all of these opportunities to serve false gods, to people please. And man, these are the years where you really get to start to kind of stretch that, their resilience, but like their kind of willpower.
Yeah.
You know?
And when I was in college, you know, I wasn't strong in my faith when I got to college, but those are the kids that I wanted to follow. You know, that I was amazed by. I was like, oh, how did you get like that? You know, and I found out what they all had in common was they loved Jesus. It was really compelling. They were different.
Yeah.
And while certainly starting to follow Jesus can start at any age, I think this stage, elementary, is one that so many families start to run out of steam. And I'm saying, guys, let's stoke the fire.
See it through.
Yes, let's in elementary stage, let's drive it towards what resources are out there. If I need to aim up a little bit and say, let's grab a teen study Bible and let's starting reading that. And maybe that'll feel like, guys, something special to your kid because you're like, hey, you're not a teen yet, but let's start to study this together. Let's look at it. Or maybe you're brand new to this and you're like, hey, let's both read a children's Bible together. I know it's written for kids. We can do this. You know, we can do this together and find something valuable in that. There's a lot of resources in general for Christians. You can start to look at some adult ones. Even this fall, our oldest son, he'll start going to men's Bible study with me. And we'll talk more about that probably in our next episode when we talk about kind of that preteen age. He already and has been serving with Chelsea on Sunday mornings, serving our church. There's even some Sundays where he subs for Chelsea because she's gone. And so he runs check-in for people checking in their kids for kids ministry. Our kids greet on Sunday mornings at our church. There's opportunities to serve, and they can serve when they're in elementary. It's actually really good for them.
It is,
in a generation that's kind of both anxious and entitled, and maybe that entitlement has led to the anxiety because they kind of expect things to come their way. If we want to build instead this resilience, and if I could be so bold, this strong-willed child, we want to build them to be like ready to say no to what they should say no to, and ready to be stubbornly affirmative to say yes to what they should say yes to. then elementary is the perfect stage to start to foster those things. So
Yeah.
I hope that's true for your family. I really want that to be true for ours.
Yeah.
I'm fired up.
Amen. I like to see you fired up.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah, I love it. Go off. I love it.
Well, thanks for listening, friends. If you think it's as important as we do to disciple our families, please help us out by giving us a great review wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit one of our sponsors and share this episode with one of your friends. If you want to keep up with us or join the conversation, you can find us at familydiscipleship.com or follow the Family Discipleship Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. We love you, listeners, and we will see you again next week.